When you look at a map of Europe, there's a country sitting right in the middle that most of us think of as, well, pretty new, quiet. But what if that's completely wrong? What if the real story of Slovakia is one of the most important and maybe one of the most deliberately hidden histories in all of Europe?
So that's what we're going to dig into here. We're going to follow one central question. What if the very name of a people was a clue? A 2,000-year-old breadcrumb leading us back to a history that someone, somewhere, tried very hard to erase.
I mean, the story we all know is pretty simple, right? Slovakia is a young country. It kind of popped up in the 20th century after empires crumbled. It's seen as just another branch on the big Slavic family tree. But the sources we're looking at today paint a totally different picture. They argue that the Slovaks aren't just a branch. They're the trunk of that tree. A foundational people whose true history was, and this is a heck of a claim, intentionally shredded by the empires that grew up around them.
Okay, so clue number one is right there in the name. Think about this. You've got Poles, Czechs, Serbs, Croats. They all have their own unique names. But in the Slovak language, a man is a Slovak, a woman is a Slovenka. They are the only Slavic people who, in their own language, still call themselves, literally, the Slavs.
That makes them something of a living fossil, linguistically speaking. While all these other tribes were moving, rebranding, renaming themselves over the centuries, this group just stayed. They kept the original name for the whole family. In our investigation, this is witness number one, and honestly, its testimony is huge. All right, so if their name points to an origin, what about their land? Our first major piece of evidence is buried right under their feet, and it tells a story of incredible power and wealth. And calling it the Silicon Valley of the Middle Ages is no joke. Central Slovakia was the absolute epicenter of European technology and wealth. It's like a natural fortress, a massive mountain safe just packed with gold, silver, and copper, the raw materials that basically powered the economies of half the continent. So how do you guard a safe that big? You build castles. A lot of them. We're talking more than 180 castles and who knows how many other forts in this one small area. That is one of the highest densities of castles anywhere on the planet, and they weren't built by outsiders. They were built by local experts protecting their own resources. Just to give you a sense of this wealth, get this. In the single year of 1740, one mining town, Banska Štiavnica, pulled 600 kilograms of pure gold out of the ground. The gold coins made in nearby Kremnica, they were basically the US dollar of their day, the most stable, most trusted currency in all of Europe. And they weren't just digging stuff up, they were leading the world in innovation. In 1762, the world's very first university for mining and technology was founded right there. This was the global headquarters for the know-how that would literally fuel the Industrial Revolution. So you see the picture, right? We have this industrial and technological superpower sitting in the heart of Europe. But that begs the question, who were the actual people running the show? Were they just some newcomers who got lucky or something else entirely? And that leads us to clue number two. This is one that can't be rewritten or shredded by any empire. It's the evidence that's written in the blood, in the DNA of the people who live there right now. Modern genetic studies have found something absolutely stunning. 85% of Slovaks carry genes that have been in that exact same region for at least 8,000 years. 8,000! For comparison, look at the Welsh, another famously ancient European people. They're at 70%. And then look at the Hungarians, where only about 5% of the people have the original ancient Magyar genes. This data isn't just suggesting it, it's screaming it. Slavics are one of the most deeply rooted indigenous populations in all of Europe. And when you zoom in on that DNA, the story gets even deeper. Sure, about 45% of it is that classic ancient Slavic marker, R1A. But check this out. Another 20% is haplogroup I2A. That's a marker from the old Europeans, the people who were there before the Slavs even arrived. So they didn't replace the ancient population, they actually merged with them. And here is the plot twist that flips the entire script. The powerful Arpad dynasty, the legendary founders of Hungary. Everyone just assumed they were ethnically Magyar. Well, in 2018, a genetic study on the bones of King Bela III proved they were Slavic. The conquerors weren't a huge invading army. They were a small ruling class that was completely absorbed by the massive local Slavic population they ruled. Okay, so let's recap.
We've got an ancient people on their ancient land controlling a massive amount of wealth and technology. The hardware is absolutely established. But what about the software? What was the cultural operating system that was running this whole machine?
And this is where we get to our third and final clue, the language. The argument here is that it's more than just a way to talk. It's the key to unlocking the original code of the entire Slavic world. So first, a little background. Before you had Russian, Polish, Czech, any of them, there was a common ancestor language that linguists call Proto-Slavic. Think of it as the root system from which all the other Slavic languages grew.
Now, this is where it gets really cool. The Slovak language sits right at the geometric center of that whole family tree. It's so central, in fact, that people often call it the Slavic Esperanto, because someone who speaks Slovak can understand a shocking amount of Polish, Czech, Ukrainian, and other Slavic languages without ever having studied them.
And why is that? Well, according to this analysis, it's because the Slovak language is the one that changed the least. It stayed in that golden mean, and by doing so, it basically preserved the original communication protocols of that mother tongue, Proto-Slavic. It's a direct, living line back to the linguistic past. So, let's tie this all together. Let's solve the case. The name, the land, the DNA, the language. Every single clue is pointing in the exact same direction. It's telling a story not of a young nation, but of a hidden foundation of Europe itself.
What we're looking at here isn't a story about a civilization that was conquered and disappeared. No, it's a story of a brilliant survival strategy. They built this resource-rich core, with centers like Nitra and Great Moravia. And then, when a new power, the Kingdom of Hungary, arrived, they didn't get wiped out. They performed a tactical maneuver. They integrated, but, and this is the genius part, they kept control of the minds and the technology, and they preserved their core identity, their name and their language.
And believe it or not, the proof was hidden in plain sight the whole time, right on the Kingdom of Hungary's coat of arms. It clearly shows two different parts. You've got Upper Hungary, today's Slovakia, with its symbol of the silver double cross, an ancient emblem of industrial power. And then you have Lower Hungary, with the stripes symbolizing the agricultural plains. One part was the engine room, the other was the breadbasket, two halves of one kingdom.
So it leaves us with this one last really powerful thought. For hundreds of years, this nation's power was essentially invisible to the world, hidden inside bigger empires. And it just makes you wonder, what if true strength isn't about being the loudest or the most visible? What if real, lasting power is about being the essential, irreplaceable foundation that everything else is built on?